Hello everybody. Let's work on SPSS and see how we can use SPSS to calculate the mean, the median, and the mode, which are our measures of central tendency, and also the standard deviation and the variance and the range that are the measures of variability. There are a couple of different ways to calculate those in SPSS, and one is not any better than the other. You can use either one, whichever one you like. Whenever we start doing the analysis, we don't have to calculate those separately. Oftentimes we can just use the analysis and click a couple of check boxes, and SPSS are going to give those statistics to us. So let's get started. Here we have a file that contains information about a few students, and we have their grade that they received on the essay they wrote, and also the amount of time they put in preparing for that essay. So let's go to Analyze Descriptive Statistics. We're going to click on Frequencies first, and what we want is, for now, we're going to focus only on the grade that they received on the essay. So this is the variable that we're going to move to the right. And next, we want to click on Statistics. And now here are all the things that we want. So we want to make sure that we click on the mean, the median, and the mode, standard deviation, variance, and range. And just for fun, we're going to do the minimum and the maximum score. Let's see. We can ask for a histogram that may show us what the distribution looks like. So I don't think there's anything else that we need, and we can click OK. And in just a few minutes, now first we're gonna see the table that gives us what is our mean. Our mean is 63.45. The median is 63 as well, pretty close. The mode is 48.23, and if you see, there's a little sign here, there's a little A that says there are multiple modes that exist, and the smallest one is displayed. So even if we have one of each grade, that's still gonna pop up as multiple modes. So each score is gonna be a mode. So you have to be careful when you report that. Now we have our standard deviation and our variance, the range, what is the minimum score and what is the maximum score. Now we have to be careful. SPSS gives you all that information, but it's up to you to decide when to report it on. Now if we scroll down a little bit, this is just the frequency. Each score appears, every score is just going to be listed with frequency of 1. And let's see what our histogram looks like. So we have a bunch of scores that are about between the 60 and 70, it looks like, and we have fewer that are above 70 and a couple that are in the 50s, but it looks like there's a gap in between. So that would be interesting to know when we report on what our distribution looks like. Okay, so this is the first way to do your mean, median, and mode. I'm going to delete that so that it doesn't confuse us. And the next way to calculate the mean, median, and mode, actually just the mean, and gives us the standard deviation and the variance, but it does not give us an option for the median or for the mode is if you go under Analyze, Descriptive Statistics, and Descriptives. I'm gonna reset that real quick. Okay, so let's do the hours this time. So we want to see what the distribution of the hour span looks like. We're gonna click on Options. The mean is already checked. With standard deviation we do want the variance and the range, as well as the minimum and the maximum score of our variable, the amount of time students spend preparing for their essay. And that's the only thing we need. We're going to click OK. And here it is. We have 45 observations included. The range is 12.12 for the minimum of 2.89 hours and maximum of 15 hours. Our average, or our mean, is 8.35 with a standard deviation of 2.7 and 7.4. This is another way that we can look at what our characteristics of the distribution look like. Again, this option, however, does not give you the median or the mode of the distribution. And the last one is, if you go back to Analyze, and this time we're going to go down to Compare Means, and we go across to Means. Now we're not going to compare them yet, but this option gives us an opportunity to look at the mean and the median, as well as the variance, standard deviation, and range. So let's do the hour span on essay again. We're gonna click and move it over to the dependent list. Under Options, these are the three that come by default. Now we can change anything that we want. So for example, we're not very interested in the number of cases. Instead, we want to see the median. We do have standard deviation, so let's say the variance is another one, and range with the minimum and the maximum score. And we're going to click on Continue, and we're going to click OK. And here's again, we have 45 cases. Even though the table looks a little bit different, we still have the same information: the mean, standard deviation, median, variance, range, minimum, maximum. And if you see, they show up in the same way that we included them in our little window before we ran the analysis. So another interesting thing that we should pay attention to is, what if we want to calculate the mean, the median, the mode of subgroups of our population? So in our case, let's say if we go back to our data file, we see here that we have gender. So we have some students who are male and some students who are females. So we wanted to see how they compare. So we can calculate the mean and the median, standard deviation, variance of each of the subgroups. And the way to do that is if we go under Analyze, Compare Means, Mean. If you see here in the second block, we have that independent list. So here's where we're going to put our student gender variable. So what SPSS is going to do is it's going to split the file for males and females, and is going to calculate the mean, the median, standard deviation, variance, range, minimum, and maximum for each subgroup. So if we click OK, here it is. We have for males, here's our mean, median, standard deviation, variance, range, minimum, and maximum for female, and we have the total for the group. So that may come handy when we have multiple subgroups in our population. Another handy thing to do is also to look at our distribution. If you guys remember when we did the analyze descriptive statistic frequencies, we asked for that histogram, and the histogram is a good way to look at your distribution. If you end up with two modes, probably the best way to get at that is to look at your distribution and what it looks like, especially if you have a pretty large sample size and it's not obvious just by knowing your data. And even if you ask for the modes, SPSS is going to give you just one, the smaller modes, and it's going to tell you that there are multiple modes in your distribution. So a good way to do that is if you go under graphs and legacy dialog, we can go down to histogram, and here's what we want. We want, what is our variable? We want, let's say, hours spent, and we're gonna click OK. And here is what our histogram looks like. We see that the majority of the students have spent between 5 and 10 hours approximately, and we see that there is a gap here, but the histogram pretty much tells us where or how much, in our case, how much time students spent on their essay. So the majority of the students, as I said, spent probably between 5 and 10 hours by looking at the histogram and the frequency. So that's it for now. See you next time.